think we both fallen and we can't get up.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
It's on, there's no time. Yeah. Orange water.
Don't know.
Yes.
Yeah? No?
One time it's up on 30 bucks. Sorry.
It's okay, I lost mine.
I can't see
At least
anything.
you have yours. This couldn't have come at a better time. I have a student who passed everything in extra math.
Oh, wow, so he went extra math to the
She
extreme.
did, so I'm excited for this
Well,
to pass today.
This will provide him a very unique challenge, especially if he's an extra math veteran. And he's also going to love it so much more.
Sweet.
You hate extra math? Yeah.
No, some of the kids
Some
do.
of the kids do, oh yeah.
They're just not moving and not moving and not moving and not doing it, and they're like,
And we also find it's very difficult for teachers because you have to make this
What did I ever
assignment.
do to you?
I have no idea.
Yeah, the growth vector program is very small. We've seen quite remarkable, you'll see, the momentum is extreme. You can see your opinion. Science and data.
good.
So if you want to stay.
That I just said,
Yeah, Jenna said we're starting in later because we don't really do Fluency. Okay.
Well, I did do it last year, but we did 2 whole days and then.
We're gonna start next week.
I'm almost done. I'm just getting on so.
I've never done ELF on the.
I like some, I think the second grade percent and some
First
ones
grade,
that
or second grade, they're really a good job with the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like we've done messages and puzzles and stuff.
So did that here.
My kids.
There, I know. I don't know. I talked to Johnny.
Do you like it? I didn't do anything. I'm not interested.
Should have been everybody's If I don't do it again, then you kind of say, okay, well, but I was like, here's still, you
So I can't wear it, does that?
because I'm not gonna have to, I'm not gonna put stuff. So anyway, I was gonna just, I just had a chance.
Start, then it's all have to go to, right?
Well, thank you.
Hey, buddy.
So yeah,
I'm getting it done. She's gonna be a district. Like if you could just sit in one of those little Carol things.
Perfect.
Carol.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I gave you guys a little bit information. John and I are here to talk to you about the Math Fluency project, and obviously they're the experts, so I'll leave it to them. And I'm sure if you have questions, they'll give you a chance to ask when they're done.
Hello, my name is John Hoopenthal. I was the superintendent of public instruction from 2010 through 2015. And this is my partner, Nai Wang.
Thank you all for coming here on a Monday afternoon. We know it's pretty unusual, but thank you so much for staying.
This project goes all the way back to 1980. It encapsulates 38 years worth of research. And when I became superintendent, I gathered a group of people together, and we set out a mission of bringing all the latest research together in memory and motivation to create an environment where students move mathematically faster than they'd ever moved before. Now, over the 4 years that I was in the superintendency, we had some spectacular successes, but the project wasn't done, and at the end of that 4 years, Super Geek here
That's my official name.
agreed to take over the project and provide the superstructure necessary to support it. And the project moved then to a highly academic school, a laboratory school in South Phoenix. And when I went around to each of my fourth graders at the beginning of the year, I asked them a very simple question: what's 5 plus 4? Not a one of them could say 9. 2/3 of them could do it on their fingers. I had quite a number of students who scored 0 on AZ Merit. So they had no detectable level of mathematical ability at all. They had trouble counting. So that was the environment in which the final work was done on this project. And what you're going to see here is a short video of a student, one of those students who could do 5 plus 4 on his fingers after being in this environment for about a little less than 80 days.
All right, so what you're about to see this student do is he's going to be playing a math game. So this math game, he has 1 minute to answer as many questions as he can. And these students do these 1 minute rounds in a 10 to 15 minute bell work exercise. So this is considered tier 2. Just do it as a warm-up bell work exercise. You don't really spend much more time on it after than that. So here he is. Let me go ahead and start the video here. And he's a performer. So, so do we have sound in here too?
I can hear it a little.
It's playing.
Oh, there we go. I didn't hear it.
Okay.
It's gonna go away. It'll go away.
Oh, all right, go away. There we go.
Wow.
So I hear some wows.
What? Like, I need a second. I can't even.
So does your student do it that fast on extra math?
No.
Well, they'll hit the
So
buttons, but they won't get it
You
right.
can see two different problem types there's 750 problem types in the deal there. Young students have enormously plastic minds.
The X is moving around.
Yeah, so the X could be in any one of these 3 positions, so it's not predictable.
Plus, minus. So it's incredible amount of accuracy. This is only after about, this video is 40 days, not the 80 days. So this is about 2 months in from start.
And if you got it wrong, would then?
It would show red. It would go red if you got it wrong.
Yeah. We don't want to.
like danger, like a?
No, but the thing is, the kids
want to
have a
be clear,
visceral
green means it's
physical
correct.
reaction whenever they get it wrong because they want to try to get.
16 0.
So I did 60, and so far that day he's already done 234 problems. That's key because he typically did over 1,000 problems a day like this. So he could sustain that pace. I saw him sustain that pace for 20 straight minutes. That was on day 1 when I went back up there to start him up. So after summer, day 1, he sustained that pace for 20 straight minutes.
Yeah, and how about summer slump when they come back? And we'll go into the science later, but they don't show any detectable loss or degradation of their abilities over summer.
Now we'll show you another video of him. He's gone up a few levels, and so you'll see, instead of being 3 terms, there'll be 4 terms, and you'll see 3 different problem types again.
And so this is about 2 months later, or 40 days after that initial. So here it goes, and I'm going to zoom in so you can try to keep up. You see there's words, 4 number, mixed addition, subtraction.
Okay, we might move fast.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you want
this
pause
is like a
and
battery.
So 8 plus 3, we're sending stuff more and more to them in words. We're realizing the importance of that, not just sending the symbols. 8 plus 3 is 11, equals 10 plus something. The something is 1, and you can see that he's able to solve this, do both sides just that fast. And he can do it much faster than I'm an engineer, worked with numbers my whole adult life, been touch typing since high school. On peak speed, I got up to 58. Ronnie could do 81 on peak. So his all-time record was 81 in a minute.
So here he's finishing this round, and spoiler alert, you got it all right.
So Little much more difficult problems. His speed is slightly slower, 56 instead of 60. So far that day, he had done 262, but he had some errors. So as these tougher problems came at him, he was.
Now I'm going to show you, I know you're probably getting tired of watching these math videos.
No, it's really cool.
So this is him like about 20 years later, or about 1 month of progression.
So
this is
he's now
Is he
moved
already a
up.
math prodigy?
What's
He's
that?
getting there, yeah.
Well, but recall, this is an enormously at-risk school, drawing most of its students from the highest crime, highest poverty zip code in Maricopa County. And it was a very difficult group of students for me to deal with. I had students who couldn't walk the length of the hallway without getting into a fist fight. So this was the perfect environment to develop the product.
Yeah, and so here he is. This was actually a milestone moment for him and for us because something significant happened. This is the first day he got it.
Okay, go.
My name is Ryan. I'm fourth generation. I have 209,000 points and 17,353 questions.
Okay.
So can you believe that just a few months ago he did not like math at all?
And he's fourth in the nation, he said.
Well, there was only one
That's just a
classroom in
funny.
the nation.
That's okay. He feels like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there were 3 students who were at a higher level than him. So here you can see a one-step word problem is simple, but it's these kind of word problems that students desperately need to be able to get fluent at and be able to translate. So Chromie has $11. He needs X to make a total of 14. So 14 minus 3, or 14 minus 11 is 3. And so that solution, and you can see again, he's getting these all correct.
He does this wonderful stuff. But the thing is, like, what was significant for us when we were researching and watching these kids progress? There's 750 standards or levels that the kids go through. So we were watching them going up the levels, up the stairs, climbing the ladder, and then it was like, what's going to happen when he hits the word bank in its entirety? And what happened was he slowed down a little bit. So in this case, he got only like 20-something correct, which is still not bad. But then also on top of that,
See that where there was the incorrect.
Yeah.
So now he's slowed down quite a ways, but word problems take a lot more time than simple.
but for us, we
or
were
terms.
thinking, was he going to completely crash down to like maybe 5 a minute? Just really, his literacy skills were really low. But the thing is, throughout the whole entire process, he's been being introduced to words, slowly but surely, and it's being spiraled into the whole mix of the K equation, which is really significant when we're working with ELL students and introducing them.
So far that day, he'd done 256 problems. Typically, he did 500 in the morning. We did 2 sessions. He would do 500, over 500 in the morning. We'd come back in the afternoon. The class as a whole, it averaged over 300 in the morning and another 300 for 600 a day.
Now,
So
you had your hand up. Did you have the?
Yeah, I was wondering if it teaches them like specific keywords or what, because like I can't even read it as fast as he's answering it, and I'm like reading it really fast. So that was my question of like just the timing of reading it and answering it. Like, are they just picking out numbers or keywords or like?
the thing that was hard for me to grasp when I was doing this is that and we'll get into how we were able to pull off what looks like a miracle, is that he had to be literally reprogramming every neuron from his eyeballs out to his fingertips because, like I said, I'm a touch typist, and since high school and doing numbers my whole adult life, and I could not even hold a candle to him. And it was because he was doing 1,000 a day. And when you do 1,000 of something every day and you do it week after week after week, it's amazing, the transformation. And we'll go into a little bit of the science on why that's so critical for these students to be able to get these fluencies at these lower levels so that they can relieve the cognitive burden of doing that and move on to the more complex stuff necessary for fractions, ratios, and proportions.
So very short answer is we don't teach them anything. They figure out themselves because we use the purest form of gamification. Where if you play any video game and let's say you play Super Mario level 2-5 like 100 times, you're going to figure out the best ways to get through that. So same with we're providing them a challenge and giving them.
So let's go right directly to the issue here. So the question is, how does he get to that level of fluency? And the answer is 1,000 a day. But then the biggest question is, how do you get an at-risk student to do 1,000 of anything a day? And the answer to that is there were 9 scientific theories. You can call them 9 scientific puzzles that had to be solved to create this environment. And so, for example, the first one was the human brain is uniquely motivated by a team score, but not any team score. It has to be instantaneous. How is my team doing right now, this split second? How are we all doing this split second at whatever our mission is? And but that was only one of the scientific puzzles. All 9 had to be solved before the thing would work. It was like a complex machine that had to have all the gears lined up.
So that's the first one. So how we manifest that
Now
is
these, yeah.
like this. We have a scoreboard sitting in front of the class. But then there's the other part of the whole entire principle, which is even critical.
Yeah.
The individuals.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead right straight to the overall board?
All right. So basically, well, you want to talk about the individual accountability.
Yeah.
So then here's the scoreboard in front. So you see it. This is the beginning, so we have nothing much on the board. Here it is. We see the progress on the board. That the line has turned yellow. And actually, these are actually MESA teachers. We took a MESA teacher group of MESA teachers.
So we project up to the front of the class while the students are working a leaderboard. And this leaderboard incorporates, so it starts with the computer. It has some information on all the students, and it starts to estimate how many points can they do at full blast in 12 minutes. And it gives them that as an objective. Then this bar here will start completely blank, and then it will start to move as a class as a whole. This is that instantaneous team score that has a unique grip on the human brain. It starts to move across the front, and it'll go red, yellow, green, and then boom, it blows blue when the whole class gets there. Now, we had one of the most phenomenal experiences this morning that we've ever had. We were over at Adams Elementary School. We were starting up for the very first time, 3rd grade class, and it was the most enthusiastic 3rd grade class that we've ever started up. I mean, it was amazing. These were all at-risk students. They ended up doing over 5,000 math problems correctly this morning in our session. It took less than half an hour opening session. So, but, you know, if you ever wanted to see the grip, it was there. But again, that's only puzzle number 1. Puzzle number 2 is, it's not enough for a team score. I have to know, how am I doing at contributing to that team score instantaneously this second. So it's a real-time team score and a real-time individual score. But even that's not enough, because leaderboards can be destructive to individual sense of identity. We have solved that problem with this leaderboard, largely solved it. Not 100%, but solved it so completely that the positives of this completely outweigh the negatives.
So how we manifest this? If you look at Johnny, Jenna, and Timothy, you know, they're some of our top performers in the class. So they are working on level 12, 8, and 6 problem types. And if we scroll over to the side, we see that we've assigned them 1,600, 1,500 points as their goal.
So the computer has figured out what they can do in 12 minutes if they go full board. And the answer is, this student here gets assigned an objective of over 500 problems. So this is somebody who has, their output is very close to what Durrani's you just saw. So they're going to have to go pretty much full out for 12 minutes to pull this off. But we also have, as a part of this team, a number of special ed students who when they're done, the computer has estimated what they can do. Their bar is going to be completely blue. They're going to look just like every other member of this group, and they're going to be just as important as every other member in terms of the points that they're contributing to the board, and they are going to feel like they are part of the team, that they're not a part, that they're not a lesser member. They're fully blue. Their bar looks just like everybody else's bar.
So down here we see, you know, our requirements for them are around 500, 200 to 500 points, which is still a lot of math
That's
problems.
70 math problems. So that, if a special ed student does 70 math problems, and what we're finding, what I found in my lab class, those zeros on AC Merit, we found that by the end of the year, I had all of them doing over 400 math problems a day. So our discovery was, my observation was that they never really were special ed. They just fell way behind. It was like on the first day of kindergarten, the train took off, and there they were. They were stuck right there. As soon as they got into some success, and that's another one of our scientific principles, we call it the success ratio. Terrence Scott has done an enormous amount of research on this. A student has to be at 4 successes for every 1 failure. for them to be in a learning mode, a successful learning mode. Well, we try to maintain that at 9 to 1. So by giving these students success and giving them a sense that they could do this, they just move right on up. And we were able to get them to over 400 math problems a day, and they were steadily improving in their ability.
So that inclusiveness really changes the attitudes, especially with special ed students, because they always feel like they're segregated, separated. Now they're playing with like the top performers. We call them like the LeBron James or the Michael Jordans in the class. So now they're playing with them in the same game as opposed to doing something completely different. They might be on their own levels, but they're part of the game and they move the bar across. But this other aspect of the leaderboard is also just as powerful. So if you think of this as this bar here and these bars are designed on calculations based on about 12 minutes. So what we're saying is this is our expectations for all the students in 12 minutes. So in 12 minutes, if they're doing what we predict them to do, they'll all be blue. But if you see here, there's some reds, there's some yellows, and some greens during this track. Now this is an extreme example. You should never let it go this far back. But what happens is this actually, because it's real-time nature of this track, you as a teacher can look at this and then become empowered to be able to perform real-time RTI and work with the students who are having stumbling blocks happen right then and there. So what's going on is this student here, normally he's a or she's a high performer, 1,500 points. That's a student who's usually outputting a lot. But then what happened was she leveled up to a new level and it's giving her a lot of problems. So it's like, so a lot of cases, like they hit a standard, it might be something that they missed when they were younger, and then now they're like going into going, oh my gosh, I'm tripping. So then what you can do is you can go over to the student and say, okay, here, let me go ahead and help you out, give you some hints, tips, advice. It's basically you're acting like a coach because, as a coach you go, okay, this is what I expect for all my athletes, but then this one's kind of underperforming. Did they sprain something? Did they pull a muscle? Are they dehydrated? Did they not get any sleep the night before? So then that's when you can go and identify and help them out.
The teacher's role in this is pretty critical. It's like a shepherd guarding the flock. You can't let any of the sheep get too far away before you're there talking to them. A lot of times all it takes is, Hezekiah, show me what you can do. And then you got to get them kick-started. It turned out that they got in a fight with their brother last night, and they're not feeling the best today. But if you get them started, most of the time they can take off. Hezekiah, you're going to have to do about 5 more games to hit goal. Can you do that? He never said no. And so you just get them started.
Yeah, so that's really what makes it very powerful, because your role is amplified in this entire aspect because you're helping the kids and dealing with the problems right then and there rather than waiting for the report. Now, one of the things that is most powerful beyond the actual exercises that they're doing and creating the motivational environment is really changing the culture of the classroom. What we've done is we said, now you're a team, you're all part of a team, and we're all together making our way to the goal. So, we always wonder, what happens with a kid who's the last one to make it to the finish line? So this kid right here is in a 3rd grade class, normally a very underperformer. But here he is, his classmates are surrounding him, giving him encouragement. I'm just going to fast forward to when he finishes this round.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
That's okay.
That's okay.
This is the last round, so they're just kind of pushing him to the finish line, giving him encouragement. So there we go. So here's that moment. Here
you can see a critical, every single student is blue, every single student, it's objective. That's a perfect board. We were able to get in the lab class that perfection every single day. A lot of teachers, they run with a hard time cutoff, and they will end up with 3 or 4 students who don't make goal, but that's okay. You have to decide as a teacher. We have looked at them running with a hard time cutoff, and it works just fine because it's just as likely that the top student won't make goal as it is the slowest student. So it works. You can work this in a variety of ways to make sure that you can organize your classroom.
Yeah, so the most important thing is establishing that team culture. And once that team culture becomes established, which usually takes 2 or 3 weeks, then the kids actually go and start cheering on and calling out to the boards like, look at that, we're almost made to goal. Like this morning we were at
yeah, it was something to behold this morning.
One of the students was like yelling out, like, we're almost made to go, we're getting there. And then at the end, the teacher's like told us, I am so surprised because that student's the one who usually does not engage in anything that they put in front of him. And now he's like engaged, he's like cheering everyone on, get everyone moving together. So that whole team aspect really transforms something in their brains that makes it so that it's not just me, myself, and I. Now it's we and us, and we're all working together. And like a lot of online gaming, it utilizes that principle where everyone's playing together. Like like when you're playing quad in Fortnite, or if you're doing teams in Overwatch. I'm a gamer, so anyway, so those things that these kids are already being pre-programmed to work in this type of environment as a team, and we're just tapping into it. So, and the best part about how we speaking of gaming, we get this.
Do you guys want to go home? No. You want to keep playing? Yeah.
Yeah, kid.
So you go.
He said, I never liked math, but they made it into a video game.
But it has
How
none
is
of
it
the.
a video game if it's
Yeah.
just problem?
Exactly.
Problem after problem after problem. I've got a kid who's gonna shut down the minute he sees a problem.
Yeah, but
How is it different than
it is,
interrupted?
the thing that grips them is that team score, that they know that they're operating as a team, and that individual accountability, that's what grips them and makes it feel like a video game to them.
Yeah, because we're using gamification elements that make it feel like a video game. It does not look like Fortnite, does not look like Minecraft, does not look like Roblox, or any of those games.
Now, one telling thing of this short video here is every one of those students has hit their objective. The class has hit its objective, and if you scan across there's still 7 students who are still pounding out math. So we've tapped into really strong engine of intrinsic motivation, where they want to be able to show that their skills are better, to do this until they become better. It is very powerful.
So they all working on different levels?
Yes.
And it's independent based on they start with addition and subtraction and they just work their way up? Or?
Yes, absolutely. So we use like one of the core fundamental aspects of game theory is like any video game, you start out with level 1. Like any Mario players in here? Play Mario? Okay, yeah. So if I threw you into World 5-6, how would you do in World 5-6 the first time you ever played?
Horrible.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is like everyone starts at level 1 and they work their way up. There's 60 levels, 750 standards to kids level up through. So the difference is that so what grade do you teach? 5th grade. Okay, so you teach 5th graders. And do we have any 2nd or 3rd graders? So 2nd and 3rd graders here. So they're both playing the same exact game. So the 2nd or 3rd grader will be like, okay, level 1, level 2, level 3. Actually, today our 3rd grader made up to level 6 by the end. So they climb up based on their ability. So like if you're an experienced game player, then you climb up a little faster than someone who's inexperienced. But you're still going through the level and learning through the process. So, but the difference is the 5th and 6th grader will be like, oh, level 5, level 10, level 15, level 20. They'd be like, oh, this is easy. This is all stuff I did when I was in 2nd grade or 3rd grade or something like that.
So they go up by
their
chunks.
ability.
Oh.
No, they'll move by
As
by
they
speed.
show their accuracy and fluency at each level, they go boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. So here's the really cool thing about what happens in this process. They get to level 20, they get to level 21, they get to level 22, and they're climbing this ladder, and what happens?
They stop.
Level 22, the rung is missing. What happened? Oh my gosh, so then the kid starts to falter, starts to make some mistakes. A lot of times the kids fix it themselves because they identify that, okay, this is a problem type that I missed in 2nd grade, so to speak. And they work on it, they master it, and they move on. Or that's when you go in and you walk up to the student and you go, oh, here, let me help you with that problem. Let me give you some tips, advice, and think of it this way. And then because it's incremental growth, every single level builds on the next successively. It usually just takes a little hint or advice, just kind of give them that aha moment. And they start working on it, they build it. That's what we call it, the top of the ladder syndrome. So you're teaching at 5th grade, they're standing at the 5th grade level on top of this ladder, and you have to teach them those standards. So this ladder is all wobbly because it's got these missing rungs.
Let's move on up to the academic game.
Yeah. So then what happens is then you repair that rung, the ladder gets firmer, builds their confidence, builds their abilities, and lo and behold, that rung is foundational to multiple standards up the ladder. So all of a sudden the kids can be like, oh gosh, I can start understanding the stuff you're teaching them now. Because when they're at the top of the ladder, they're using all of their cognitive resources, trying to stay in balance, counting on their fingers, using calculators, so that leaving nothing left behind to take in the new information that you're giving them. So that's what really is happening when we're building them up from the ground level up.
All standardized tests, whether it's the SIT, the ACT, or AZ Merit, have an underlying scale that enables you to compare one test outcome with another. So the typical gain on that scale from the end of 3rd grade in Arizona to the end of 8th grade is 25 points a year, plus or minus a few points. In the laboratory class, our average gain was 44 points. And we had 3 students who gained 4 times that, 4 times the statewide average, hitting 100 points. Now, on any given test, that can be a statistical fluke, but we pulled up their Galileo results, which is an independent measure, and it validated it. All 3 of those students went from below the 30th percentile to above the 80th percentile in an independent measure.
Does that count for resource students?
The
So students that are on, like, say, an IEP or even.
normally you see with at-risk populations like this, the curve drops below the line here. So our slowest student did 10,000 math problems as a part of the system over the course of the year. And we showed every single student with gains on AZ merit.
So these are our SPED and IEP students, and they showed positive gain. As you know, that's not normal. Now we see in the academic
Now,
environment.
my observation is that as a teacher with good classroom management skills, and as I go across the Mesa district, we're close to 100% of the teachers with good classroom management skills, could scorch me. I think that we will have a lot of teachers that outdo this. I could never get Durrani to be quiet. So he could actually do 50 math problems a minute and be conducting a full-scale conversation at the same time, disrupting a lot of other students. So it was an amazing thing to watch him do math, but it wasn't so much fun when you're trying to get everybody to kick in. Come on, Durrani, be quiet.
So there's a lot of science behind this thing, and we could go for a long time.
This
is like probably one of the most critical.
Yeah,
ones.
this is a huge part to understand the fractions dilemma, why only 20% in the National Assessment of Educational Progress students can solve a fractions problem conceptually or procedurally. And what they now are putting students in scanners and having them do math. And so you take the problem 9 plus 8 is 17. This student here can do that, but they have a huge glucose consumption pattern, meaning that it's taking a lot of neurons working on that problem for them to be able to pull that off. This student here is just a pinpoint. So what's the difference between this student here and this student here? It's thousands of practices. So with practice, you can get this down to a pinpoint. And what that means is all these other neurons are available to do the more complex operations necessary for proportions, fractions, ratios. So
So it's like yoga for your body, right? You got
That's a great way to
your
put it.
flabby muscles and your strong
Yeah.
muscles.
Yoga for your body, I love that.
Yeah, because you've got to, and there's
Oh, so I was gonna, so better be good for me.
well, and this is part of that success ratio we talked about. We see students as we go and do these implementations, and we've now done close to 100 of them. We see students whose finger will get over the correct answer, and it will just shake like that. And they have experienced so much failure that they can't commit, and they're just afraid of the consequences of even engaging. So what this software does is it holds them up in the success zone. So if that takes counting, if that takes number identification, that's where it gets them until they get the idea that I can do this, I can be successful, and they experience a lot of success. Every student on this will experience thousands of successes, and as a result, they can shed the post-traumatic stress syndrome, and their speed just picks up. When Jalissa came back and we started her up, she just said, Mr. H, all the speed is still there. And so when they're punching out 30 problems a minute, that means there's no PTSD. They're flowing, and so they're no longer apprehensive about the outcomes of them engaging in math.
So we have a lot of science, but I think we're going to leave you with this video of a principal talking about her observations after about 3 months of using this in the Gila River Indian community.
Just as a precursor to this, those students are doing, 3rd grade students at Gila River are doing over 150 math problems a day, and they've been doing this now for how long?
4.5 months now.
4.5 months now.
Zacatone Elementary School. When we first started, the students struggled with being very slow at finding things on the keyboard. They didn't partner, collaborate with cheering each other on or work together to help solve problems. Each student was in it for themselves. But as I do my regular duties around the campus, the students have started talking about at recess time what their goals are. So now they're talking about math at recess time. When I walk them out for the buses in the afternoon, I have students running up to say bye to me just so that they can share with me where they're at with their goals and how close they are to meeting their class goals. And they know those numbers. It's not something they're guessing at. They know exactly how many correct problems they have. They know exactly how many more they need. So they're thinking the math and they're thinking their goals and they're celebrating their successes, and they brag on themselves, but they also brag about their classmates. So it's a whole group effort. It's no longer just me, myself, and I. They're taking pride in their own work. They're meeting their goals. They're achieving their goals, and they're celebrating those goals. That they celebrate them outside the classroom with their peers. And so that's my biggest celebration with them, is that they make their own goals and they achieve their goals, but they know where they stand, and they are data driven for themselves on how they're getting better faster.
There we go. They're data driven for themselves. So that was just like one of the most startling things, like going to the Native American community, where usually everyone's like all so quiet and cloistered, to turning into this environment of celebration. And this is the moment when they hit 500,000 points as a class, and they had a big pizza party in celebration of that accomplishment. So all those things all tie together to create this environment. It's not just doing math as an exercise and solo exercise. This is now a group effort. This is now, we're part of this team, and we're all going to celebrate together. And we make math into our culture, into our success story, and really changing the attitudes of these kids. So because it's more than just doing exercises, because that's the major accomplishment we've done, but really changing their attitudes about math. And this bleeds over to everything, to literacy, because like with that school we work with, it went from a D/F school to B school in 1 year. And it's not just in math that they gain it in all these other fields, because the kids' attitudes have changed.
They gained the maximum and the AZ merit, or the letter grade system. You'd get 50 points for growth. They got all 50.
Okay, so now, so basically we're here to present the project. BASE has been really wonderful for us. We've had great top-down support, and basically they tasked us to come out and introduce this project to schools who want to become the first ones to pilot it in Mesa, who want to be the pioneers. So it's totally an opt-in thing, so it didn't come from top down. They just said, this is great, John and I, go and introduce this and see who wants to jump on board, and not everyone did. So that's, to be honest with you, there's a lot of things that could happen. You might have other things that are complicating your lives that you can't even fit this in. But this is something that's completely voluntary. We want you to come together as a group, as a team, and say, this is something we want to make our school culture around. We want to bring this into all of our classrooms. Or you might just say, oh, we can only fit this in 5th grade or 6th grade or something like that. So we want you guys to really think about this and volunteer as a group and make this part of yours.
How does it work in kindergarten?
Okay.
Question, all the levels of the game are the same?
Yes.
So a kindergartner would probably never get to level 20?
They might not.
We
don't know.
We've had some, we
Depending
have,
on the kid.
Yes.
we have implementations
Yeah.
from 2nd grade up, and the 2nd grade implementation was startling. But we did some implementations with preschoolers going into kindergarten, and we start we call it level Z.
Okay.
It has number recognition, so it says
Okay.
type 6. So you hit 6 and hit the enter key.
It's like what
So
we have
Kane had us
fourth
doing
graders
a
who need
game
that.
like that where they had to type the
Yeah.
number 6. So
But the thing that was amazing is in each one of those classes, there were 3 students who did over 200 math problems, one doing over 300 math problems the first day. Can you imagine what a student will do who does over 300 math problems a day starting in kindergarten? But the other thing is it's like a checklist on developmentally appropriate. So are they having fun? So as I looked across our tests at the kindergarten level, they all seem to be having fun. Are they having success? Are they in the success zone? They were all able to do the number, at least the number identification. And most of them were able to get up into, we call it the fluent. It's interesting that you have to have fluency at 0 through 2 before you go on into fluency at 0 through 5. So you really have to think of that fluency as independent. And so most of them we're showing fluency as 0 through 2. And so the answer is that from the standpoint of the software, yes, here's the challenge. The challenge is getting them to log on without suffering stress breakdown.
That's why we was already on our kinders on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just taught us,
Okay, great, so yeah, great.
Yes, right.
But,
It's
but
the
the thing
takes
is,
of the half hour. It
the
takes.
thing is,
They've
20 minutes to
been
get logged
doing
on,
it.
but the thing is, we simplify the process where the password is the number 1, and your username is maybe even the first letter at something at a.com or something like, very simple. We can simplify it.
ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the shit. But it, the capital A.
Yeah, the shift capital A is always
Yeah.
the throws everyone off, yeah.
The other way of tackling that too is to set aside specific time right at the time when they're logging in to do further work on it. So I would go around to the students and say, George, what's your username? What's your password? And then I would go to another one, and so essentially it would be all of them becoming acutely aware of it and memorizing it. So step 1, so to do some explicit exercises where you have a prolonged back and forth about their username so they can get it memorized. But you can't take this username issue, and obviously you're all very aware of this username because sometimes it extends right on up to 4th grade.
Yeah,
Where you,
we don't use the MPSAZ student password. Is that shift, letter, or
Could
something?
we do it though?
Huh?
Could we do it?
Oh, you can log in for them, yeah, or something.
Or no.
Can this program be, can be on their system, like on our Lehi resources?
Can we change their logins and passwords?
Oh, yeah, once we set it, we can set it to whatever we want it to
Okay,
be. So,
okay,
so
that's
we have that control. And the other answer to your question is many of the Mesa schools that we're working with, they're waiting until the spring semester to introduce it to the kinder and first graders as well. So they didn't want to introduce it this past semester. That's why our tests are very limited. It's short spurts, but really, what we've seen is phenomenal. Like these kids, once they start getting going and they learn to control this computer, they don't know what they aren't able to do. So we've seen kids go do 30 plus x equals 50, and they come up with 20. Like it's like whoa.
that's on day 1.
Yeah, and day 1, and they just start moving up. And since it's incremental growth, they eventually figure it out, and who knows, they might get to level 20 in 2 months.
Now, this username and password issue is solvable. We started up a 2nd grade class. They're not all that much further along, and they all logged in less than 3 minutes. So that teacher, she had whipped. So if you focus in on it, you think it through, you can whip the username issue and do some amazing things with very young students.
Yeah, so any other questions?
Can you go back to what is displayed for the students? I have a question about
Okay,
that.
so I could actually take you into a live. Oops, not test. There we go. So for students, this is what they'll see when they get started. They'll log in, and then they'll have really one thing, a couple things to click on, but they click on Start Game.
What is
But I
displayed
think
though?
I think you want to see the leaderboard.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see the teacher side?
Yeah.
Oh, the teacher side, okay. Well, then let's look at the teacher
Well, I
side.
think she wants to see the leaderboard that we showed up here projected for
Oh,
all
okay.
the students, so she can ask.
Yes, what are all the students having access to? And the reason I ask is
This one?
for, yes,
Yeah. Mhm.
is let's say, I can't read his name down there at the bottom.
Randall.
It's blatantly clear that he has way less expectation. Do you guys find that a problem culturally in the classroom?
Our observation, like for example, this morning, we had some students get up to tier 6, and I went around and I checked those students who were, we have not picked up a problem with that. And one way to think about it, if this student gets out here, they're doing 70 math problems. They're in the top 10% of all students in the nation when they do 70 math problems. So 90% of all the students in the United States today will do less than 70 math problems. So they're in the top 10%. And we really emphasize that with the students. When we get to the end of the day, we say, everybody here is in the top 10%. Everybody did a phenomenal job.
So, and the fact that it's a team culture, a team environment, that really changes the entire, so the kids who are at the top, you go and encourage the kids at the bottom. Sometimes they go and help them out as well to push them through. But really, in the, we've already done this in about over 100 classrooms. Personally visited over 100 classrooms throughout the past 6 months. And all the teachers, it's a bit of concern, but then when they actually get in the environment and start moving with it, you realize that they find out that it's not a problem. It's like when all the scientists come together perfectly, those things go away. So this is a leadership that builds upon everybody rather than
Now,
takes them down.
we're gonna need to produce some more boards, because typically what we find is there's a significant, slightly higher probability. These all show blue, but there's actually a slightly higher probability that they won't make it to blue than the students down here. So this is, you will typically, early on, you might see some of this, but within 2 weeks, all of a sudden, they will start having their challenges. Because they're getting monster goals to have 500 problems sent to you every day.
Right, that's why I was wondering if it was a problem between those kids and then the kids that have way lower goals.
After a very short period of time, each bar has an equal probability of not making it to goal.
Is it possible
If
to
it were
display?
alphabetical,
Also to
instead of ranking.
Is it?
Also to note that these numbers are not displayed, this is just for our reference.
Yeah,
only.
these numbers here do not display when
Oh, that's what
We're showing
Just bars.
She's right, though, that Randall's gonna know that he's always at the bottom.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if it were alphabetically, he wouldn't know that he's always the last one. He probably knows
I've been thinking
that
those
he's
thoughts
done
myself.
See, one
do as
thing-
well as
one
everybody
thing that we've
else.
seen-
So it's down there.
Yeah,
He
one thing
doesn't
that
know
we-
the last one.
Yeah, but the thing is, what we've seen is a lot of our students, especially speaking with teachers after they've been doing it for a month or 2 months, is that when they talk about healthy competition, these students, know that they have their own upward mobility, so they have their own work ranges that they work in and move up. And in fact, we've seen a student when their first week, they spent their first week in the bottom 2 or 3, end up being the top after a month. Because this was an ELL student that was really struggling, and then once he found his rhythm, his stride, and then we started to understand the whole process, boom, he took off like a rocket ship. It's just,
Is it possible to just display the class goal, the big one at the top, rather than every student?
yes, it is, but
Okay.
we recommend not, because you're losing over 60% of the power of the system.
Okay.
So we do understand where you're coming from.
It's already 3:15, I know some of you
Yeah.
have to go.
Yeah.
If you have individual questions, you can stay. I will be following up with everybody, but I wanted you to see what I saw, just because I thought you would be interested. Like Nye said, this is not gonna be a one-size-fits-all if you're not in it. I want teachers who are in it for the pilot, because we really wanna see if there's something there to it. So I'll follow up with interest.
And you can approach it as a 2-stage decision. You don't, to see it in your class, you don't have to make a commitment to it. So we will be glad to come into your class, set it up, and run it. We did those setups and run this morning in less than a half hour. And so all those teachers knew that they could have that experience today and then decide not to do it. So you can approach this as a 2-step decision. Okay, I want to experience the day 1 without making a long-term commitment. But once you've experienced day 1 and you say, I want to keep it in here, we really want a strong commitment that you are going to be a good shepherd, meaning that you're going to manage the board and go to the short bars and help those students. So we really want that level of commitment. But we are more than glad to come in and do a day 1 setup, and won't be a problem if you decide not to do it after the day 1.
So, quick question, you said that you could do a time allotment or you could do something else.
Well,
So are you suggesting we start it and we work for, 15 minutes?
15
and
minutes,
that's it?
yeah, 15 minutes.
And then everybody's cut off, we're done, and we just go.
But basically, the system will adapt itself to that 15 minutes. So in the very beginning, it won't be as accurate, but over time, it'll become more and more accurate to hitting that 15 minutes.
And to get 15 minutes.
And it also sends another signal to the student. You've got 15 minutes to get to work, because then they'll start to have an experience where, okay, they didn't get to work for whatever reason today, and they fell a little short, and they'll go like, oh, I gotta get to work next time.
So like this morning, one kid got kicked in the eye at recess. What are you gonna do?
So that one kid on the top is not gonna be done before the kid at the bottom, because he's got more problems to do,
Yes,
so he's gonna be
exactly.
working. So I'm not gonna have to worry about them all sitting around going, all right, we're
Nope.
all waiting on so-and-so.
No, because they're all gonna be
Yeah.
personally challenged, and they're also be working on their own individual level as well.
And we think that in a 15-minute period, you'll find that 90% of the students get there. So you'll have a few that fall a little bit short. But if you are aggressive managing that during the thing, you can probably get down to 1 or 2, maybe 0.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a key or something that says what each level means, or the objective for each?
Well, that's, we're gonna pull that up right here. So basically, there's not a key, but there is this list. So here is a list of all of the standards that, we started off with warming up, which is counting, then added with 5, 10s, and then I'm just gonna kind of scroll through this real quick. We have the boss level. So basically the boss level is like all the X minus problems thrown into one, because X minus is such a major problem for students. And so these designs are actually based on the Arizona Common Core standards. But the thing is, we've actually made quite a few changes to it since we started, because we found that the Common Core standards just don't work in the way that they wanted to, like as far as the way that things are. So we've actually are making adjustments and changes to how that's according to how the data flows.
Right here?
And there's an X because you can select which you want.
No, the X is there because we give you guys the power to destroy our program too. So that actually lets you delete that standard if you want.
Oh, okay. And then you had said that there was that level Z. Are there other letter levels, or does it just go
Everything's
from
numeric all the way up to 60 currently.
Yeah. Just the level Z is the only one that's.
So like right now,
That's what she means, backwards for us.
Because we're the kindergarten table, so I'm still looking at this kindergarten person.
yeah, so we're gonna be in like level Z or the new level. They'll probably be in that probably for the first week or 2 or 3.
Okay.
Who knows? But then you'll start seeing
And then it goes to addition.
addition.
Okay.
Yeah. So like in this case on level 60 is square roots. So it's like, that's our level 60 badge. Yeah. And actually, let's go with. So great questions, and thank you so much for your time and attention. We appreciate it. Principal appreciates it. So this is our favorite, our kids' favorite badge, is the Zombot Award. So when they beat the first boss, this is what they get, and all the kids get really feisty over getting the Zombot.
We found that the way they had the tiers set up, it just didn't work right. That the psychometric challenge of some things, levels that were down below, it just didn't work there. So we had to move it. We had to move it in order for the students to maximize their pace of learning.
Yeah, so that's actually one of our scientific principles is keeping the progression in incremental growth, and we found that in the Common Core doesn't do that.
Now, when a student is working on this level and they're at the edge of proficiency, the next level should be right here. And if it's up there, then you as a teacher are having to bridge that. And when it's too far up there, then we need to move it. So we got to move it further up on the ladder and move the rungs down so that.
So for you data junkies out there, we're creating mountains and mountains of data. Basically, one of the most amazing things is that we've got like thousands and thousands of students running through this program, providing so much data on how they're progressing through it, and we're actually seeing large indicators of, wow, this standard and this standard do not work well together. We need to move stuff around or rejigger or build in new points to get them to that level. So we're like intrepid explorers in mathematics, moving up this climbing this ladder with the students and going, all right, this didn't work. Okay, who thought of this?
So it's not teaching anything.
No, it's not.
So the kids, we have to come back and.
Oh yeah, so you still do classroom instruction. So this is a 10 to 15 minute bell
Right,
work.
as it's going in there, we have to go back in and fill in. If they miss a standard and they can't figure it out.
Well, yeah, so you don't even have to think about that because they level up themselves really effectively.
Will this transfer to paper pencil test? Because I'm guessing, unfortunately, we'll still have to do a paper pencil test.
Well, from what we've seen, this level of ability does transfer.
Our lab class, they were all paper and pencil when they took English American.
Yeah.
So if their academic gains showed up on test day. So.
And could you go back to the badges so I could just look at the low levels?
Oh, which one? Okay, here's the low levels.
Warming up.
So warming up is
is the numbers.
Yeah, it
And
shows
it's like-
type
it
6,
shows the
hit
numbers.
6, enter
So here,
it.
let me show you what it looks like. I'll play a game really quick. Let's see how well it.
Yeah, let's,
Oh, whatever. This one's already
Oh.
higher up, so this
Oh,
one's.
so that's not
I'll hang it. But let me go to another login, then let me see here.
Let's see if we can get one on level 3.
Yeah.
let's
That's,
see Naomi and Jessica levels.
yeah, and actually, you know, what we could do is we could also provide you all a login so that you can, you know.
Give a demo.
We could actually go ahead and do a demo.
You guys set the login before you.
Well, we can have you set up your own logins, so I can give you all the instructions on how to do that.
We set up all the student accounts, so it's all ready to go. All they do is type in a username and a password.
No,
And
he's
they,
talking about themselves.
oh,
Can
okay.
the teachers?
Or we could give them to
have
No, I talking about the kids.
Oh,
So that we can.
no, when the
also
kids
go
sign
in
on,
and
we actually import the data into it using a standardized form. Usually it's the perm ID at something.com, and usually like, you know, at Adams, we did at a.com. So for you guys, it could be at l.com, or give you your mascot at, what's your mascot here?
Links, L-Y-N-K.
L-Y-N-X.
Is that
Okay, you just signed it. We're not sure.
So what the thing is, what understanding you come up with? At Armstrong,
So here we have-
Armstrong.com.
Here we have level Z, 1 plus 0, 1. So
One comes
student has to
to,
identify
okay,
two.
one comes to.
2 plus, wow, so that,
Well, I've already played the game a little bit, so I'm kind of getting
Yeah.
it.
Did
you get them
So
wrong?
I need to get a fresh one, but anyway, so I've
But the
already
1,
got,
2, 3, 4 one was good.
yeah, so
Yeah,
level
but
Z,
he
we
did
got-
well, so we kicked him up to the next
Yeah, I
level
already been
versus.
kicked up.
sometimes-
Oh, there we go. Here's
Oh, okay, I see.
another one. So the way the leveling system is actually very, it's a very sophisticated yet simple. So the best way to think about it when we're looking at the leveling system, let's say I'm working on level 5. So 50% of the questions come from the level 5 problem type. So that's where I'm working on the core problem type. But then 20% are coming from the next level up. So the next standard. So basically that's being slowly spiraled into the next. And then 30% are coming from the levels that I previously already mastered, keeping me in this success zone. So I'm already currently 3, so I'm already leveled up.
yeah, so he already went
So this
to-
isn't a fresh account. I have to create a whole new fresh account, but I thought this was just fresher. So you can see that I had some of the level Z, some of the next level up. So we're getting some
Can you
mixed.
get that
We
wrong?
get an
Now-
idea now.
Now, if I get, do you know what? I just answered the first two without even thinking about it. I just typed in, I'm like, wait a second, I got it right. I don't believe it. So it's actually working. So a lot of it, like, you don't even have to think about it to know the answer. I'm not even thinking about it right now. Now I'm talking to you, so it's not working. But, so I'm gonna get something wrong. Just to see what
So we didn't give you a demo on Z, but what it'll do, he'll say type 6, student 6, and hit enter.
So-
Type 2, 3.
Even a 6th grader would go through level Z.
Yeah.
Yes, but they go through really fast.
You know, they'll move on through it and be able to.
That would be the
Which would be
success
great
they
for your,
need to
which would be
get.
great for your kid because he's like, oh, I can do this.
Now,
Right,
even
right,
when we're in the
right.
upper grade levels, we run into students who need level Z.
Oh, yeah, we see some
So we
fourth graders who need it.
We used to take level Z out when we would go to the other grades. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
Because there are some students
we even
whose
leave it
lives are saved by level Z.
We even
They
leave
need
it in
to
for-
stay there and do that work,
for high
even though
school.
they're, yeah. So we leave Z in,
That's
even up in high school.
Yeah,
We find students there.
Because we thought they wouldn't like it, but they need it. So here's some of the level Z questions. So the first 3 were like really basic. So you can see how like the spiraling. So this is some of the problem types they're running into.
Yeah, so we really found that students need to get fluent in the 0, 1, and 2 space. So all possible combinations of that space before they move on to even the 0 through 5.
And then so if they're in this level and also the previous levels, which is,
So you can see the counting.
Yeah, I saw that.
We do count, but we don't to the plus. We don't say 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. And we
Yeah.
know you, we know you.
But we find that they can do that.
they can do
Oh, I
that.
know, I'm just saying that's not, they won't have it in their background knowledge.
But then they're going to start working on it. They'll start building it.
They'll pick it up. They'll pick up. That's an extension. If they can do 1 plus 1 and they get to that one, they'll extend out.
And my higher kids.
See, the beauty is your higher kids will be able to roar ahead and see how fast they can move. And that's gonna be something beautiful when we see the kindergarten do 200 math problems a day for the whole year.
So,
That's
any
gonna be
other
something.
questions? So what do y'all think? What does everyone think? You like it?
Sounds great. Sounds great, yeah, that's, I want to try it.
You wanna try it?
Because I got a vulnerable that I'm like,
Oh, no, wait. Oh, their attitudes will change once we come into the classroom. They're like, hey,
I'm willing to try.
awesome. Okay, great. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. Staying extra after on Monday. So, we really appreciate it, and you all have a good week, and we look forward to hearing from you. Well,
So hard to pull it.
so on your next you want to?
Was he there?
It's an idea. You've actually done that with our number. I mean, it takes a lot of
There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people doing
I snowed you. You were like, I want my girls.
And then I saw my best friend. She hasn't seen in a long time.
Yeah. She would be put on her homework. I put it some of them
You're all over, but eventually started.
School's probably closed though.
I think obviously. She gave one to me. I did gamble. Now I'm gonna put a big.
I know.
So we should probably put our.
Want to go down.
I haven't listened to Jen yet. I listened to Jen.
I'm trying to figure out.
Your new smelly burgers just sit there. I remember in college classes, we always had, what do you mean? And they'd have the smelly burgers and you just. What? I love it. Is it egg? Oh. There's even, Ricky. That's awesome. I think we're super. So can she order more? Did they have them on?
That was my next thing, but the only other thing I saw was
Just do those.
well, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like,
How many come in now?
Same thing.
And we want to.
But I'm a little concerned too.
Are they, yeah, are they, I have so many friends in there because they actually. I'm like, it's
Several of
Should we order that? We could ask the question here. But
we can totally look on order.
the other thing, is there another thing that it says it's sold by another company?
You have a Harvard class. Okay, so my class is Harvard last year, so I felt like I was gonna learn.
Oh, definitely, but it was really cool that she had the kids doing it.
It's like the student
I
kicked
didn't
in
want
the
to
eye.
take a day off because
Yeah, you did love that.
They all look alike.
this year,
But nice.
I mean, I love them. You can go home. It's just taken.
I don't know,
I know, that's what I'm saying, because they're Halloween, so they're probably not gonna.
Yeah, we're hoping to do this.
Can she just